Hi guys, just gonna get straight into today's video. Very short. I'm bringing you two stories. They're very short, there's very little information on them, and you're gonna understand why in a second. We have two victims and we have two perpetrators who were caught and brought to justice. But you or I will never know their names. This is two of Ireland's unnamed killers. On the 15th of April 1996, Anne-Marie Duffin was at her home in Curragregg, Blennerville, near Tralee. Originally from Holland, she had lived in Kerry for 10 years. Although separated from her husband Paul, she lived in the bungalow with her sons Kevin, 15, and Timothy, 13. On this day, while the boys were at school, one of Kevin's friends would knock at the house. As soon as Anne-Marie opened the door, the 16-year-old began to attack her, hitting her on the head, stunning her, and knocking her to the ground. He then began to stab her with a screwdriver. He would go to the kitchen and get a bread knife and return and cut Anne-Marie's throat. At 4:30 p.m, Kevin and Timothy would arrive home. Opening the door, they found their mum in a pool of blood with her top pulled up and her trousers pulled down. Kevin would run to a neighbour's house, and poor Timothy, in all the shock and everything, managed to lock himself back out of the house and had to wait. When Gardaí arrived, they would find no signs of forced entry and no obvious signs of robbery. The boy's dad was in Dublin, and so while he was making his way back, they stayed with an aunt and uncle. So as I said, there's not a lot of information on it because obviously there were reporting restrictions and stuff, I think. So on April 25th, there was an article saying that they were still searching for the murder weapons, but that they had not found them, and I don't think they ever did. What I know is that the investigation would lead them to the home of the 16-year-old on the 28th of April, so 13 days later. He would cooperate, telling the Gardaí that he had taken the screwdriver from his neighbour's garage. His reason for brutally killing Anne-Marie: she didn't like him hanging around with her son. He would tell Gardaí that she didn't like his haircut or that he smoked cigarettes. So bear in mind, 16, smoking cigarettes, whatever. You can be doing worse things these days, but obviously that was it's a bad sign. Plus, why wasn't he in school at the same time as Kevin? So I mean, I think we can agree he's not the greatest. He also said that he pulled her clothes up and down to make it look like it had been a sexual assault, but that he didn't do anything. The assistant state pathologist, Dr. Margaret Bolster, would say that Anne-Marie had received 44 stab wounds to her head. 12 penetrated her skull and 1 hit into her brainstem. She then received 22 cuts to her neck, 2 of which cut through her jugular. Her cause of death was hemorrhage, shock, and inhalation of blood from her neck. 44 stab wounds with a screwdriver to her head. That is a lot of hatred. That is a lot of anger, violence. The teenager pled guilty to murder, and on the 2nd of December 1997, he was sentenced to life. His defence, Martin Giblin, would say that he came from, quote, an excellent family. He showed remorse. I need to break that down. So, he came from an excellent family. They could have been brilliant. He was smoking, which again, as I say, it's not the word. Like, I mean, you could be smoking heroin, but it's still not the greatest thing that you'd want your child's friends to be doing. But he obviously wasn't in school, or, you know what I mean, he wasn't in any type of supervision that day as a 16-year-old on a school day, and showed remorse. It took 13 days for the Gardaí to come to him. He didn't go to them. He might have admitted after they found him and then showed remorse. But to me, 13 days is not remorseful. The boy said he was, quote, very, very sorry for the hurt he had caused the Duffin family, that he knew the mandatory sentence was life and that he thought it was just. Anne-Marie was described as a good, caring mother. Her family showed a lot of decorum during the trial, saying that they felt worse for his family than they did their own. His defence would ask that he be sent to St. Pat's and not Mountjoy. I've spoken about St. Pat's before. It's like the juvenile prison here for serious offenders. Justice Frederick Morris would say that that was a matter for the appropriate authorities. He would also say that, quote, a disaster had befallen everyone involved in this case. Sadly, that is not where the tragedies end for the Duffin family. In March 2015, Paul Duffin would be sentenced to 2 years in prison after he pled guilty to cultivating cannabis and to the sale and supply. So basically, he grew it in his attic and he would make medicinal teas and soups with it. And he does admit that if someone was over, he would offer them some. He used it for pain relief. So basically, Paul had been a taxi driver, and in 2003, he was in a serious car crash that left him in so much pain that he could no longer work. The court heard there was no drug dealing paraphernalia found, but this was his second time to be caught. In 2011, he had received a suspended sentence for the same charges, so the judge sentenced him to 2 years and 1 suspended. In this article, it would also mention that one of Paul's sons died by suicide, and from a bit of looking, it seems like it was Kevin. And that's where we leave the Duffin family. On the night of January 24th, 2006, Leonora Kinsella left Dublin to head home to Salbridge. She had been at an exam and arrived home to Grattan Court just before 11 p.m. When she opened the door, the stairs would be soaked in blood, and she would find her 19-year-old daughter, Rebecca, unresponsive with severe head wounds. She called emergency services, and her husband Joe, who had been at badminton. A local doctor would pronounce Rebecca, who went by Becky, dead at the scene. There was a 16-year-old boy in the house known to Rebecca. He would be taken to Connolly Hospital in Blanchardstown to be treated for minor injuries. The following day, he would be charged with murder in the presence of his grandfather. After the charge, he just simply replied, yeah. On the 26th, he would appear at the Children's Court, comforted by friends and relatives who shielded him from the crowd of about 100 who had gathered outside. The boy sobbed as the details were read out. The solicitor, Colonel Boyce, would say that his client was in, quote, a fragile state, and he requested that he receive attention as required. He was remanded to St. Pat's. The post-mortem would show that Rebecca was stabbed 51 times and suffered multiple blunt force traumas to her head, trunk and limbs. The state pathologist, Marie Cassidy, would say that the cause of death was from multiple stab wounds to the back of the neck, which severed her spinal cord. Rebecca was a first-year fine arts student. She was described as, quote, such a lovely girl, and her death was, quote, such a terrible waste of life. On the 4th of May 2007, the now 17-year-old pled guilty to murder. His parents were with him, and he kept his head down as the details were read out, and he cried. A baseball bat and 2 kitchen knives were used in the attack. The court heard Rebecca died in a very serious and vicious manner. Detective Sergeant Ashley O'Connor said that in interviews, the teenager would say that he didn't mean to kill her, and that after hitting her with the bat, he couldn't stop. He was sorry for what he had done, and that he was, quote, sad. That would mean that he, from what he's saying, he used the bat first, so he beat her with the bat, and then took 2 kitchen knives and stabbed her 51 times. Justice Paul Carney would give him the mandatory life sentence, and he would be sent to St. Pat's until he turned 21, and then he would go to Mountjoy. And that is where we leave the Kinsellas. Obviously, neither of these cases had the person named, the culprit, the killer. But for the second one, I found this one when I was actually looking up something to do with the first one for Anne-Marie's. I came across a forum that mentioned both, so Anne-Marie and Rebecca, and basically says, you know, they're not named, but if you read between the lines, you can tell who her killer is. And so it was a younger male, a teenager, known to Rebecca and in the house with her on like a weekday, like a weeknight, 11 p.m, 10 p.m, or whatever. The parents are not mentioned, his parents are not mentioned in the beginning. Charles, his granddad is, and then other relatives. His parents are only mentioned later. And so I would think it is a sibling. I could be wrong, I could be very wrong, but I think it points to a sibling. I know there is mention then of that she had a boyfriend, but again, the chances of her boyfriend being 16 and her being 19, so I think it was a sibling. The chances are that both of these killers are now out, and they were never named, and they'll never be named. I feel that they are both capable of committing these types of crimes again. They were both 16 when they done it. They both showed immense anger and violence. They, to be honest, I don't think they did show remorse. Maybe in the second case he was obviously found immediately. Maybe he did really feel remorse. I can't think the first one did if he didn't come forward after 13 days. And then the wounds, like 44 stab wounds to someone's head with a screwdriver. And then to leave, pause, and go off and get another knife, like a bread knife or a kitchen knife, and come back, bread knife, come back, and then cut another 22 times. You had time there to pause and be like, oh my god, what did I do? And stop. But you didn't. Like that break, I just can't think that that's all in the moment and I just couldn't stop and blah blah. And then the same for the second one. If you're saying that once you hit her with the bat you couldn't stop, you hit her with a bat, beat her body, and then went to the kitchen and got 2 knives and came back and then stabbed her over and over and over. And it's just, I don't know how in those moments that you wouldn't take that pause as you've left that situation. You've removed yourself from the situation and you've still done something to go back and cause further harm. If they had committed any crimes while in prison, I would imagine either they weren't reported on or it was reported under a different name or something, you know, like it was not told that it was them. I had tried to find more information and I couldn't. Yeah, I just don't think this is something that they're going to grow out of. But I found it interesting because Ian Horgan, who murdered Rachel Kiley, he was named and he done that when he was 16, and from everything when I go back you can see his picture and his name from all the early articles. I think maybe it was when he was 17 he was named or something, but once it went after that he was named. So it's just like it's unusual or it's weird, isn't it? I don't know. But you can let me know what you guys think. Guys, yeah, as I said, there's not a lot on these ones. Yeah, I did record this video again because the mic I used wasn't great and then it was very low, and then I thought in editing that I could higher the volume and it just made it sound very... So yeah, I just decided I'd record it again because I thought this case was a good one. It was an interesting one. It was something different. So yeah, you're not losing your mind. This is actually the same video that you might have seen already. But yeah, please do let me know. Let me know what you think of the setup now. Yeah, let me know what you think of this case. These cases. It's frustrating that there's so little information on it, and I get that we need to protect minors and stuff like that, but it just worries me because how does it even work then if they were to commit another violent crime after they were released? Would this crime still be like stand to them on their record, or would it be like a clean slate? Because like they could have, someone from those areas could have committed these crimes and we wouldn't know. We just think it's another person, a fresh crime kind of, if that makes sense. Because I would imagine then they wouldn't be allowed to talk about it. Like as a 30-year-old, if they now commit another attack or murder or whatever, I would doubt that the media would be allowed to say, oh yeah, they also committed a crime when they were 16. Let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you for your patience on this video. That's it. We shall see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.